Hello everyone. We are just getting started here. Last time we had some technical difficulties, so I'm just going to double check that the stream is all right and that the audio is working as expected, and then we will get going. Okay, that looks good. Real good. All right, I'm going to give it a little bit of lead off so I can cut that out later, and then we will do a live start. Hey everyone, my name is Corey, and today we're going to be continuing on with the look at Stonetop, new Powered by the Apocalypse RPG. Well, new in the sense that it's being released and was recently reviewed by Quinn's Quest, so it's gotten very, very popular, very, very quick. This is part 2. If you were there for part 1, there's a few technical difficulties and the end of the video got cut off. I didn't get to do my outro, but we ended right around the point of Arcana, so I'm going to pick up from there and keep going. And yeah, with that, we're just going to hop right into it. So Arcana are magical items. These are kind of a big selling point for the game. They're just something that comes up a lot, and we're known as one of the big features of the game because they had a lot of depth to them. So there's minor arcana and there's major arcana. I think the items here are a little bit more self-descriptive, but you get it. So this one's an old scroll case. And then, so it says a leather scroll case, cracked and age-worn. Inside is a tattered letter and a pair of small bluish ingots. It's a letter in older Hillfolk dialect from an apprentice to their master. It describes a mental exercise to draw latent power from Ethereum. You can learn Loud Davis Galvanic Confusion from the scroll, but you must translate the letter. It'll take a few weeks of dedicated study. You'll use up one of the Ethereum ingots or another source, and you risk electrocuting yourself or using up the other ingot. So it says here, whenever a requirement says that you risk it, you'll be defying danger. So this is like a checklist of all the things that you need to accomplish to be able to use it. And in this case, you'll get Loud Davis Galvanic Confusion, which is the other side. So when you touch a piece of Ethereum and draw its power into yourself, roll plus Constitution. On a 7+, you absorb the power and gain 1d8 HP, even if this puts you above your max HP. But on a 7 to 9, the Ethereum is drained and crumbles into a chalky mass of verdigris. The spell lasts until you dismiss it, or until you roll a 6- on any move. While it lasts, you need not sleep, and remain highly alert and focused. Gain advantage on any rolls with wisdom. If you remain awake for more than a few days, your body grows ever more exhausted, and you risk hallucination, paranoia, and addiction. When the spell ends, you lose 1d8 HP. So this is the minor one, and we'll take a look at the major one next. But the thing that I really have been enjoying about these is they're quite flavorful. That's one part. But another part about it is in some games, Magic has this weird thing where some classes are magical and some classes are not, which is odd. From a fantasy perspective, it doesn't need to be like that. And in this case, when you have this, everyone has the chance to be magical, which I think is quite fun. And this is a minor one, so it sort of, it does what it does, and it'll be helpful when it's helpful. I don't think there's much of a downside. It looks like something you have to be conscious of because there's a resource that it uses. But I like that these are just cards that you just have, and that's like its own set of moves. These play really nicely with Powered by the Apocalypse. Let's go check out the major arcana. So each major arcanum is represented by a half-page insert. There's a front side that tells you about it and provides you some information about the moves and the requirements. On the back side, it shows its mysteries, additional moves or options that it can provide. Oops. When you unlock one of these mysteries, you gain access to those moves, and there are consequences involved on it. So I think this is pretty straightforward. There's not a lot of rules on them because the Arcanum themselves have a lot of rules. This one is Naruba's Ice Sphere. It's magical. It's awkward. This one says, a perfect sphere of dark ice, the size of a fist, never melting, hard as stone, and set like a gaudy gem at the end of a finely wrought torque. Or not a torque perhaps, but maybe a ring that once sat upon some giant's finger. So when you peer into the ice sphere, your mind is cleared of strong emotions. When you gaze deeply into the ice sphere and ponder a situation, puzzle, or mystery, ask the GM one of the questions below. The GM will answer it honestly. Excuse me. And then you have these cool questions here. So, I mean, this is already quite fun. You have some, like, pretty nice ways to answer questions. And obviously, the sphere is telling you these things through divinations and the sort. After the GM rolls, roll plus intelligence. On a 10 plus, hold 2 acumen. On a 7 to 9, hold 1 acumen. While acting on the GM's answers, you can spend acumen 1-to-1 to either ask another question from the list above and get an honest answer, or treat a 6-9 that you rolled as a 7-9, or a 7-9 as a 10 plus. Okay, so you can kind of chain it together. On a 6 minus, your connection to your body weakens. Mark a debility and mark 1 circle. The debility lasts until you spend a few days living wholly in your body and averting your gaze from the ice sphere. That's interesting. I like how this is handled as a sort of a narrative, but I don't really care for debilities still. I'm a little bit... I feel like they're not very fiction first, if that makes sense. When you make the last mark, you unlock the mysteries of the ice sphere and can use mind walking, see reverse. Ta-da! So this is kind of when it unlocks, which is fun. When you use the ice sphere as a psychic anchor, your consciousness leaves your body and walks the world as a spirit, invisible and insubstantial. Roll plus intelligence. On a 10 plus, hold 3 power. On a 7 to 9, hold 2 power. On a 6 minus, hold 2 power and mark a consequence. While mind walking, you may spend power 1 for 1 to manifest as a ghostly voice, manipulate a small weight, or return instantly from any distance. For every 2 consequences you mark, you gain 1 of the following moves. So there's some things you can upgrade with it, which is fun. And then there's the consequences. So this is what I think is kind of the fun, exciting bits, because this is adding a whole bunch of flavor and story to it. So we only mark consequences when we roll 6 or minus. First consequence is your physical body withers and fades. Permanently mark the weakened debility. That's quite punishing. Your emotions dull. You can no longer be affected by fear, hate, or other powerful emotions, for good or ill. This one's a little awkward because I don't know quite how you always enforce that. that kind of relies on the player to have a certain amount of skill. What else do we have here? Now, okay, so the player gets to pick which consequence they mark. Replace your instinct with detachment to distance yourself from human connection and emotions. Your skin tinges bluish, your body becomes cold to the touch. You're unaffected by even the bitterest cold, but find heat and warmth unbearable. When you take damage from fire, roll twice and take the higher result. You draw the attention of some powerful, hungry entity of the spirit world. It has your scent. Should you destroy or bind it, erase this mark. Oh, that's interesting. There's a bug in here that needs to go away. When you roll 6- at death's door, you have no choice. Gain the ghost insert with the ice sphere as your tether. Oh, so you're like eventually becoming a ghost. That's fun. So the major arcana are like big, hefty items, like story defining things. They push you to an ending as well. Not a specific one, but some ending. Each character has to unlock the arcanum on their own. And each one is very different. Okay. Yeah, Arcana are very cool. Next up, we have followers. Now, in my experience, followers are tough to include in a game. In Blades in the Dark, they have experts and gangs, I think they're called. I can't quite remember, but they have two versions of it, and they don't work amazing. They work good enough. Yeah, I find that the followers can kind of get pushed aside or set aside, or like they don't have the same gravity as the rest of the game, which makes sense. They shouldn't be comparable to the characters, but it just feels a little, I don't know, second class, I guess. So we'll see how followers are in this game, because it's totally possible that your group wants to have people that work for you or something. Let's see how it looks. So a follower is an NPC who takes orders from you and generally follows your lead. I'm just going to mute myself and try and get this bug very quickly. It is driving me nuts. Okay. Hopefully it's bugged off. Followers are NPCs, meaning the GM is ultimately responsible for what they do and say, but generally they'll do as you say. You can accumulate loyalty, which makes them easier to lead and manage, and when you direct them to act, they can trigger moves on your behalf. So this is interesting. I find that this is where things kind of fall apart. It's like you're commanding people to do stuff. Okay, and then there's a few ways you can get followers. The marshal starts with them. They can have tags. We're not going to actually learn how to do this until page 462. And they have some other stuff. They have a cost. Okay, this doesn't get very much into detail on followers. This is like a light hand of what they are. So I think it's going to be later when we get to order followers that we learn more about them and how they work and kind of say how I feel about that. Okay, and then you have your home. Again, it looks like this is just kind of an overview. So, I think we will not wait here too long. I think we'll keep going because this is still stuff that's directed more at the players. There's different stats. So your steading has four stats. There's fortunes, which is morale, social cohesion, and just how it's going. There's population. This is important for winters. Makes sense. There's prosperity, which involves trade and barter, and then there's defenses. Fortune starts at +1 and changes frequently. The other three stats are, looks like there's some moves that trigger them, which makes sense. As well, there's a little thing for figuring out what content you want to include or not include. And then, yeah, we've already talked about abilities a little bit. But these are abilities for your steading. I don't like that lacking is a modifier. Because we've already established that this game likes advantage and disadvantage. And there's stuff for surplus and fortifications. We have some places of interest. I like this. Once you finish your session 0, you generally want to have 3 things figured out. You want to have an idea of what the characters are like, that's almost always something that's included in session 0. You also want to have an idea of who their NPC connections are, like pretty clear ones. I find that's rarely included in session 0, but it is with Stonetop, so I love that. And the other thing is you also need different locations, which is what it has here. So that's a big plus, because locations are also oftentimes left out, and the expectations that you'll go and purchase an adventure or something along those lines. Okay. So noting key places like the stone. As you introduce PCs, you'll add their homes to this map. You can also add any additional places of interest. So that's fun. There's different improvements that you can make, which we'll see. There's different assets you can get. And finally, the steading has a record of notable NPCs, which is good. Oh, there's a thing here. A game of Stonetop can easily involve dozens of NPCs. You might opt to use a digital tool, such as a relationship map, a matrix or spreadsheet, a wiki or database. So I kind of wish it offered a little bit more here in terms of what it provided, because this is actually a really tough point. I don't think any games have really solved this in an elegant way. Because coming up with a new NPC should be pretty significant, but most games just kind of leave you out there to hang a little bit. Okay, and then there are the moves. It looks like these moves are covered in detail later. Ooh, excuse me. So we're going to check those out later as well, because I want to be able to read the full rules for them. There are special moves, end of session moves, all that good stuff. I will take a look at the follower moves right now, because I don't want to wait till page 460 to learn about those. So when you direct your followers to do something that would trigger a player move, and they do it, they trigger the move. If the move involves rolling, you roll for them. Instead of rolling plus stat, roll, and if they have at least one appropriate tag or move, add +1 or +2 if they're also exceptional. If they have no relevant tags or move, add +0. And if any of their tags will get in the way, roll with disadvantage. So yeah, I feel like this is a little much friction for what I would like. It's it's a modifier. And I don't particularly like that. I see why they don't have advantage on here, because there's this exceptional tag. But that's just kind of one of the difficulties of the design space. Yeah, I don't particularly love it. I guess I like that's bounded to 0 to +2 or disadvantage. I feel like this just could have been a -1. And then there's some other ones. There's expedition moves. There's like a group move. Lots of options. I would love a move. I want to see a move. Is there one for finding new NPCs? Maybe know things? Maybe it depends on the type of move you're doing. Yeah, it doesn't seem like there's a specific move for let's say you need to go find someone. How do you find them? Do you just automatically succeed? Oh, there's more. I like all these options. I'm going to wait until I get to those. It looks like those pages start around page 400, so that's going to be much, much, much later. There's season changes. So this is just like a really nice overview for all the players. There's gear and possessions. And I think this works the same way as Blades in the Dark. So if you have a light load, you can mark up to 3. If you have a normal load, you can mark 4 to 6. And if you have a heavy load, you can mark 7 to 9. Yeah, and as you do the things here, you just check them off and be like, oh, I have a torch, or I have whatever you need, which is nice. One thing that's interesting in Blades in the Dark, and I felt this as well, so there's not much of a difference between light, normal, and heavy. There is some difference between normal or light, or normal or heavy. You can have 2 different ones, but it's really tough to differentiate between, a light load or a normal load or a heavy load. And in Blades in the Dark, they actually fixed that in Deep Cuts, which is the expansion for that. The one thing, so this example says, there's one thing you don't like about this example. It says, Vahid, you're carrying a heavy load, right? That seems like defying danger to me. The danger being that you exhaust yourself in this heat. So the part that I think doesn't work with this example is the GM is asking, you have this on your character sheet, right? I find that's always a thing that is tricky in games, is if the GM has to look at the sheets or the playbooks or whatever they're called in that game that you're playing, in this case they're playbooks, then it's tricky and easy to forget. Like that's one of those things that you're gonna skip over a lot of the time, which is quite tough because there are things that characters will have going on and you need to be aware of them. But sometimes it's really tough as a GM to be aware of like specific characters' sheets and what they have going on them. Yeah, and this one says, oh, if you do carry 10 or more, the GM will tell you the consequences. So it's just like instant consequence. You have some small items. You have some undefined items. You have some supplies, provisions. Okay, so this is interesting. They include a value guide. So a value 0 item is a favor, a single coin, some labor, stuff like that. Whereas if a value 2 item is a purse of silver coins, a gold coin, a year of unskilled labor, that's quite a bit. It's always interesting to figure out, how do you track economy in a game? I think this is all right. I really like in Burning Wheel where you have your economy skill basically, and that tracks all of your purchases in one skill. Oh, and then there are terms and tags. So one thing that's tricky with Powered by the Apocalypse is if you overload these, especially with like mechanical bits, that can be really tough. So armor is here. When you take damage, subtract N. It does not stack. A lot of these are more fiction-y, which is good. Ideally, all of them are fiction-y. There's also piercing. There's a bunch of common items. So this includes things like a mallet, shield, oil lamp, all that jazz. These are all value 0 items. Oh, and then you have special items. So weapons, armor. Going to have a little doggy. I like that. No cows. Pigs, though. What else? Here are some things you want to do and how you might go about them. Oh, this is very handy. I like this. So this tells you how to interact with part of the game that's not a common part of games usually. So if you want to increase your fortune, you can undertake an expedition and return triumphant. Or you can complete a steady improvement that increases fortunes. If you want to gain surplus, there's some things you can do there. There's improving your defenses. You can get a population boom during the seasonal stuff. That's interesting. Ooh, excuse me. And you can also try to improve your prosperity by expanding trades, doing stuff at the market. There's a township improvement for that. There's improvements that you can pursue. What did I just click on? Okay, that scrolled me up a whole bunch of pages for some reason. Ooh, find new Arcana. No thanks. Maybe you know where something like that might be found. If you don't, try something else. Ask around, dig through the chronicle, consult the spirits, pray for guidance, eat some mushrooms and hope for a vision. You can put the word out. You can go explore places. Okay. Now we're on to the playbooks. So this is probably going to be a more interesting part for me. This is kind of, I think these like loosely relate to the Fellowship in Lord of the Rings. Or it might just be that they're common fantasy tropes, so they kind of line up by chance anyways. All right, let's see what else we have going on here. Actually, before we continue, I like that the player section is very brief. Actually, it's not that brief. It's quite long. But there's a lot of content in it, but the content itself is brief. Like this is quick. It's a lot of quick things. So that's nice. Let's continue. This chapter is also addressed to the players, but the GM should read it too. The GM has a playbook too. You'll find a PDF of the GM playbook. Oh my goodness. A GM playbook sounds amazing. Let me go bring that up. I'm immediately curious. Oh, there's a section called GM playbook. Oops, let me bring this over here. Vitality. Open. Oh, is it just all the moves and stuff? This is not the right one to open. We're going to take a quick side journey to look at the stuff that's going on over here. So this is all like, I mean, it's nice, but not like you're not often going to be looking at like, well, maybe you will. Depending on the person, you may or may not look at this list often. I think a lot of people won't. GM moves include things like demonstrate a downside, use up their resources, present a want or need. This is interesting. So deal damage when your GM move has someone getting hurt, banged up, or knocked around. And it has a little guide for doing this. To a normal person, this will either give them bruise or scrapes. That's a D4. If it's a nasty, it's a D6. Broken bones, D8. Death or dismemberment, D10. It reminds you about your abilities. It gives you the things for recovering. Oops. Has a little content one. I do like this, although this is something that everyone at the table needs. Okay, I like this. So we're going to keep going down this side quest for a little bit, but threats are something that I felt like a lot of games don't tell you as the GM how to do this. Blades in the Dark has clocks and factions, and most or all of the game is just the factions doing stuff, and that's kind of how you prep stuff, which is quite nice. It's very straightforward for me. But in Dungeon World, I did not understand fronts. And I think that's because they weren't properly fleshed out. But this seems nice. Threats are lingering problems that cause trouble for the PCs, the steading, the region, or even the world. Write up threats after the first session based on what the players told you as they introduce their characters. Write new threats between sessions when the season change. You introduce a monster, NPC, or thing you might think might cause trouble later. You expect the PCs to encounter the threat in an upcoming session. So when you write up a threat, you give it a name and pick a type. You add it to the threat tracker. Give it an instinct. How does it cause problems for others? Rate it as to blank. So, for example, to enrich himself. You have a quick description, including related threats or NPCs. If it has momentum, write its impending doom and 2 to 4 grim portents. So we don't know what those are yet. And then some optional stuff for adding some moves, questions, custom moves. It has some advice for updating threats. So for me, I actually quite like this because this is what I'm going to do for prep. I'm literally just going to go through these steps. Not enough games have a step-by-step guide for how GMs do their prep. One thing that I'm struggling with Legend in the Mist is they have 2 pages on how to do fronts. And that's not enough for me. And there's not resources that come with it. So the fact that this is going to be explained in the book and there's resources is quite nice. There's threat moves. So let's just look at a couple. So there's institution. We'll try to change a rule, law, or custom. Change leadership. A MacGuffin will go missing. That's funny. A villain will try to make threats. Sacrifice someone to advance a goal. And you have your I Wonder list. So this is quite nice. This is so valuable. I think this sheet is probably the best thing that I've seen so far in the game. You have your home front. You have your nearby. You have your distant stuff. Oh, these are different levels of maps. They look a very close area. Zoomed out a bit. Things that are more distant. Expeditions, I'm not going to worry about those right now. And then sites. So this is interesting. So one thing that I struggled with Torchbearer specifically is I haven't tried the dungeon creation rules in it because they seemed like it's going to take too much time for me to prep. If that makes sense. It seemed like something I'd rather someone else do, you know? Okay, we're not going to dive into this, but this is quite nice. How to make monsters. Oh, NPCs. It seems quite detailed, which is nice. Followers, home front. Here's the gameplay loop. Yeah. I mean, it's quite a bit of content, but you're only going to be looking at certain stuff at certain points. Very cool. Yeah, I think the stuff there that helps you generate your prep material for the sessions, that is highly undervalued. If a game has that, I think it is instantly going to have a leg up over all games that don't have that. That's very smart. All right, where are we now? So yeah, playbooks. You pick a playbook. I'm familiar with playbooks. If you're watching this, there's a good chance that you are familiar with playbooks, but if you're not, it's just it's very analogous to like a class or an archetype. It is your asymmetrical set of abilities and descriptions. So there's the Blessed, which I think is the druid-like character. So when you're the Blessed, you pick a background. We'll go through 2 playbooks. We'll look at 2 of them. So you can either be the Initiate, you can either be raised by wolves, or you can be the Vessel. This is giving me Urban Shadows vibes, which is fun. Stonetop has long been home to a sacred order, keepers of the old ways and speakers for the new. You are one such initiate, the most gifted in generations. You gain Rights of the Land move. There are other initiates in Stonetop serving the goddess and village. They aid you as followers. See the initiates of Danu insert. Who are they? Choose 2 or 3. And then you have a couple that you can pick. So that's nice. And it comes with followers, which we know a little bit about how followers work because we already took a look at that. You can be raised by wolves. So if you want to play Princess Mononoke, you can do that. Maybe not wolves, but you grew up in the wild. Beasts of the land and air were your siblings. The sighing wind taught you language. The trees and rocks were your home. Regardless, you get the trackless step move. You also, when you forage, you have advantage. Nice. For some reason, you've made yourself known to Stonetop, and perhaps you even call it home, but the ways of humans are still strange to you. Or you can be a vessel. This is the flavor-wise, this sounds the most interesting to me. So it says, a seed of Danu's power has taken root in your soul. Perhaps it has always been there, only recently sprouted, or maybe it was planted in you during some portentous event. Regardless, your dreams have been haunted by strange markings and symbols. You feel the mystic power in plants, stones, and soil, and you felt the growing wrath of the Earth Mother as foul things begin to move. Take the Danu's Grass move. Danu's power flows through you, but at great cost. When you'd spend 1 stock from your sacred pouch, you may choose to lose 2d4 HP instead. You get an instinct. It's nice that there's a choose your own instinct. Games like this benefit from having examples and then pick your own. You have an appearance section. Stonetop is your home, or close enough, but where are you or your family from originally? Pick one and a name to match. You have some stats. Stats are an interesting PbtA concept because they aim to reduce things into these groups, which is all right. I think there's going to be an evolution, though, of PbtA where we don't have stats like this. They won't look like this. They'll look like something else that aren't numbers that you add and subtract. Like, I guess I'm thinking of Legend in the Mist again, where it's a tags-based system. The benefit of having these is it's simpler. If you want something that doesn't have these groups, you're probably going to get something that's more complicated, I think. And then you have all these moves. All these moves. This is fun. So let's see. You get one of your choice, one from your background, and two to start. So let's look at the starting ones. You can speak with beasts and spirits. You can always ask the GM what spirits are active here and get an honest answer. When you spend one stock and perform a short rite, the spirits of a place or object manifest and hear you out. What they do next is up to them. How do you get that stock? What? Did I miss? Oh, your sacred pouch. So your sacred pouch has stock in it. Oh. So kind of like a little class resource. That's fun. If you're going to do things like stats and HP and all that stuff, then having a little resource for your playbook is cool. I like that. Very PbtA. I think Urban Shadows does this quite well. I think the Draw Steel game does this too, where you have class resources. Okay, so you start with those two and then you get to pick one of your choice. So these ones look like they're higher level. Heed my words. When you persuade someone by talking sense or warning against foolishness, you have advantage. Oh, that's fun. Each time you take this move, choose an additional remarkable trait for your sacred pouch and increase your max stock by 2. Okay, so I think it looks like the sacred pouch will see shortly. Oh, here it is. Your sacred pouch, magical, doesn't take up space in your inventory. It can hold up to 3 stock, sacred herbs, powders, stones, pigments, chalk, clays. Each time you gain an even numbered level, your pouch can hold +1 stock. When anyone but you looks inside your sacred pouch and touches the magical materials therein, the stock is ruined. When you have a few days of downtime in familiar terrain, you may replenish your stock. When you forage, you can produce stock instead of provisions, and your sacred pouch is this thing. What remarkable trait does it have? Okay. Oh, and then we have the little background question. I like this. Danu has long been revered by all peoples, though not always worshipped or served by priests. In Stonetop Pavilion Gods, Danu's shrine is... and then you get to pick. So this is quite nice. And then we have the introductions. We already looked at those last session. It's very nice that the players are engaging in some world building through their character sheet. So if they're a little shy earlier, now they have to do it, because that's the kind of game it is. You can be shy, but you can't. But there's a minimum bar for what you do have to participate in. There's the fox. There's the heavy. The judge. Light bearer. I think I want to look at. There's a ranger. There's the seeker. I think I want to look at this one. Look at us, huddling behind our walls, hearing evil in every passing voice. Cowards all but you. You fear not the unknown. You plunge into it, searching, grasping at what has been lost. But what will you find, O seeker? Signs of a bright new age, or signs of our doom? You have a background. You can either be a patriot, an antiquarian, or a witch hunter. This looks fun. You've dedicated your life to rooting out and destroying horrors and their servants. What set you down this path? What did you sacrifice to walk it? What led you to call Stonetop home? Regardless, you start with everything bleeds, move, and are well versed in the Fae, the things below, or the last door and what lies beyond. You've also acquired one major arcanum. Ooh. So, what were the moves? Everything bleeds in well versed. Mark one topic into addition to one note in your background. Each additional time you take this move, mark 2 more topics. When you know things about one of your topics, you can ask the gym a follow-up question of your choice, even on 6-. Everything bleeds. When you exploit an unnatural foe's specific weakness or vulnerability, deal 1d6 extra damage. That's nice. I feel like that should be on top of what it already does, which is probably something like advantage. But, yeah. So you could be rolling 2d6 damage as this class. And then you get a major arcana, which is fun. Okay, and then continue on. Your PC will have at least one insert, a double-sided half-page sheet that you can slip inside your folded playbook. Okay, so you get like a little booklet almost. I really like that. It's like a little book you have at the table. Very fun. Each PC gets the inventory sheet. If you're a ranger, you get some stuff. You get a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Otherwise, you get a generic insert with space for tracking followers and a summary of your player agenda, principles, and rules. And then, yeah, the play kit is already set up with that. Okay, and here are as a marshal, you can have a crew, so these are the extra sheets. Oh, here's your initiates from the Blessed. Oh, you can have a lover. I don't know why an accent came out for that. And then, yeah, you just have your moves. You have the Ghost, you have the Revenant, you can become a Thrall, and you have your Stonetop one. So where are we? We must be getting close to the end of this chapter. Hmm. Okay. This is quite nice. This is kind of like the every game needs something that is a cohesive sheet that brings your group together. In Blades in the Dark, you have the crew sheet. In Legend in the Mist, you have the fellowship sheet. I think that games that include that always have a leg up on games that don't. Unless, of course, it's a game where you're competing against each other. But that's probably a very different situation. And then you have your improvement section. We're not going to dive into this because there's just so much. And then, yeah, more sheets. I don't know if all these needed to be included in the rule book. You know? You have your residents of Stonetop. It is nice so that you can look up in the book and be like, oh, here are some names. Here are some traits. And then we're at running the game. Okay, so that is, we went through quite a bit. We're at page 167 now. So this was interesting because we went through quite a bit more content. I think the characters, I like that the player chapter was quite expansive. It wasn't just focusing on the character. There's things like followers, here's your steading, all that kind of stuff. Like it's quite broad. And that is underutilized in a lot of games. So I like that a lot. Okay, we're coming up at about the hour mark. So I think this is going to be another spot where we call it here. This will be where we pick up next. This will be part 3 as we're going to dive into running the game. And then, yeah, we'll just keep going from there. Thanks for anyone who tuned in or is listening to this. If you have any comments, thoughts, or feedback, feel free to share respectfully what you are thinking. And yeah, I'm excited to keep going. I think that this is quite the... My biggest takeaway so far is that this game has made all of the resources you need and really built those out. And a lot of games don't do that. Most games don't. I think this game is comparable to Blades in the Dark in the amount of resources and material that it provides you. I think that they've done a good job with that. I think other games spend too much time trying to be for everyone or for everything that they miss out on a bunch of stuff. Like Legend in the Mist, I'm struggling a bit with how much I have to come up with on my own, you know? So we'll see. I think the idea with Legend in the Mist is that you do it yourself and there's guidance, but you still have to do it yourself. So I like how much material there is here. With that, we are going to call it. That is the end of part 2.